talking Ole Miss Rebels today on Sharpen the Point. 2024, it was a 10-3 season, narrowly missing out on the playoff due to one of the worst losses in the country at home against Kentucky. Lane Kiffin, he enters his sixth season, one of the best accumulators of talent in all of college football. He just needs to get over the hump to reach those new heights. Quarterback Jackson Dart, he was the perfect fit for Kiffin's offense, utilizing his athletic ability to its fullest extent. And last season, Dart was at his best with nearly 4,300 yards passing and 29 touchdowns, with another 500 rushing and 3 touchdowns. It was a year that bolstered him into the first round of the NFL draft. Dart's going to be nearly impossible to replace, but Austin Simmons possesses a similar athletic skill set, looking poised in his limited action. In that one drive against Georgia with awful weather, I became a true believer in Simmons. He went 5 for 6 with 64 yards and led them right down the field before Dart returned to the game. Having been in the system for a few years now, it's only going to help Simmons to acclimate to the starting role quickly. Now that he's focused solely on football and kind of dropped the baseball deal, I'd expect him to continue to get better even faster, and we know Kiffin's going to maximize his production. The backup to Simmons is a competition between Trinidad Chambliss from Ferris State and Maulaki Smith from Oklahoma State. Chambliss, he won the D2 national title last season. He provides a more experienced option. Smith got his feet wet for Oklahoma State. He's a very mobile player who could see some sub-package work put in for him with his legs. Running back-wise, this room has been fully cleaned out and replaced from a unit that struggled to get much going last season. Henry Parrish was fine when he was on the field, scoring 10 touchdowns. And quick rant here on Ulysses Bentley. I've never been more frustrated watching a football game than the one against Florida, which they lost by 7, where Lane Kiffin decided to employ wide receiver Micah Davis, of all people, at running back, and he did absolutely nothing with 11 carries for 27 yards, just absolutely refusing to put Bentley, who I had to sit there and watch on the sideline, stand there without a helmet in the game, and I think that cost them a playoff spot, and even more so, it cost me a lot of money in daily fantasy that day. Appropriately, the next week, just to stick a dagger in my heart even further, Bentley took 189 yards to the house against Mississippi State, because why wouldn't that happen when you use an actual running back in the backfield? Sorry about that. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I'm going to let that go. Logan Diggs is the top returning option with experience at his previous stops of Notre Dame and LSU, but he missed all of last season recovering from an ACL injury he sustained in the bowl game the year prior. He came back for the bowl game last season and received 1 carry while wearing a brace. I just have to wonder if he's ever going to be the same player he was before. If he is, he's going to be the top option, but I'm going to need to see it to believe it there. They brought in 2 transfer backs, Damian Taylor from Troy and K'Wan Lacey from Missouri. They're likely to contribute right away. Taylor is definitely the most likely to take the reins if Diggs is unable to return to form. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season where he was a second-team All-Sun Belt performer with the Trojans, and he showed he was capable of handling the lion's share of the carries. Taylor provides a veteran presence with explosion and physicality that make him unable to be counted out for that top spot even with Diggs healthy. Lacey and true freshman Shakai Mills-Knight, they're more of the future of the backfield than the now, but it is entirely possible that one sees the field a good bit this year. I'd expect one of them is positioned to save a year of eligibility with a red shirt, though. Pass catching wise, the wide receiver room is going to look vastly different than it did a year ago. Trey Harris, Jordan Watkins, and Caden Lee, they played significant snap roles in this offense, combining for over 2,800 yards and 18 touchdowns. Harrison Watkins now depart along with Juice Wells. I liked him when he was at JMU, and that first year at South Carolina, he just never put it together after that. Lee is the lone returner after accruing nearly 900 yards and 2 touchdowns from the slot last year. I'd expect him to see the most targets this season of the group, given his knowledge of the system and familiarity with Simmons. And then they brought in Dejon Stribling from Oklahoma State. He has the ability to be a one-for-one replacement of Trey Harris with his experience and big play capability. He's going to start on the outside, and he has the ability to lead the team in catches, in yards, and touchdowns to me. and I think he might be the top target if things break right for him. Harrison Wallace from Penn State, he's going to begin the year as the starter on the outside opposite of Stribling. I think he's going to need to fight to hold that job. He had his best season yet last year on a team devoid of wide receiver talent and yet still did not produce as an impressive level. There's a reason they let him walk when they had no wide receiver talent. That's when you have an elite program, let a guy go at a position that they're devoid of talent, it says something. Penn State's a national title contender. They let him walk. I think at best Wallace is the third option, but he's also the one most likely to be replaced by somebody behind him. There's 3 other transfers that are going to be a part of the rotation, but really for me, the guy to keep an eye on is 5-star true freshman Caleb Cunningham. He could very well grow into Wallace's starting role by the season, by the end of the season, thanks to his talent. Tight end Caden Prieskorn, he was a good option. He'd come out of nowhere with a big game, but as the year progressed, Daquan Wright, he kept gaining steam and ended the year matching Prieskorn's numbers on far less snaps. With Prieskorn now gone, I think Wright should play more snaps and possibly earn more targets, although they did add Luke Hayes from Arkansas. He's going to slide into that secondary role that Wright operated in. Hayes is another quality pass-catching option that they're definitely going to utilize, and that's going to cap the upside of Wright. Along the offensive line, for how successful the offense was, the line was not very good by comparison. They ranked in the bottom half of the country in sacks allowed and tackles for loss last season. The good news is with the nature of this offense, it allows these negative plays to not impact it too much. They're going to lose 4 of 5 starters from that unit, and they're going to hope to rebuild through the portal and end up with a better unit overall. Left tackle Diego Pounds, he's the lone returning starter. He was above average last season. I think that he's a decent player to hold over here. Right tackle Jaden Williams, he's going to take over that spot after missing most of last year with an injury. He does have plenty of experience in the past here, providing some continuity. And the middle of the unit's where most of the new faces come into play. The guard spots are going to be manned by 2 transfer additions with Patrick Kudos from Arkansas and Delano Townsend from UAB. The expectation is that the guard play is going to be improved over what they had a year ago, but that still remains to be seen. At center, Bryson Sanders. He should have chemistry already with Simmons since they worked together while on the second team for the last couple years. Defensive line-wise, last season the line was filled with absolute dogs. They dominated opposing teams. They set a school record for sacks. They led the nation in tackles for loss. It just seems daunting to replace, but this cupboard's not bare. In the middle of the line, Xavier Harris, Jamarius Brown, and Will Eccles, they're going to play key roles trying to replace the big bodies that moved on. It is a tall task, though. Harris has the frame at 6'7", 320 to clog the middle of the field. And then Brown was a freshman All-American last season, so he should take another step forward and be able to step up and play some more. Off the edge, Prince Will Umanmilan. Sorry, that was actually easier than I thought. Umanmilan from Nebraska. Deshaun Womack from LSU and Cam Franklin, they're going to be the key contributors. Umanmilan, he's going to help to ease the loss of his brother. And Golding really notes that he and Womack's a former 5-star. They're elite edge guys that even though they did not produce at their previous stops, they're going to provide instant production. The biggest question heading into the season is there's a lack of proven production across this front. There's still more prospects than assets at this point. Linebacker-wise, the linebackers look to be the strength of this defense. They returned most of the production from a year ago. They're not without their loss, though, in their own right. Leading tackler Chris Paul, he moves on, but they're plenty confident in TJ Daugherty and Suntarine Perkins to continue the high level of play from last season. Daugherty, he's going to have that green dot. Golding believes he's massively important to the success of this unit, believing that he's the one that makes it tick. And then he started 12 games last season. He ended up second on the team in tackles. Perkins is a star in the making, having played in all 13 games last season and tying for the team lead in sacks with 10.5 and tackles for loss with 14. Those results led to him being a third-team All-SEC selection. Jaden Yates from Marshall and Andrew Jones from Grambling, they're going to provide quality depth to the room and be a part of this rotation. I think Yates is an exciting addition. He led the Sun Belt in tackles with 114 last year. Defensive back wise, the secondary is undergoing a complete overhaul with 8 of the top 9 moving on, and so they're going to attempt to rebuild through the portal. It's going to be difficult to maintain given the amount of losses and then gel, as upwards of 9 guys in this unit were not suited up during the spring, so they didn't get a lot of practice time together. Safeties, Kapena Gushikin from Washington State and Sage Ryan from LSU. They're going to combine with corners Jalen Braxton from Arkansas, Wydett Williams from Louisiana Monroe, Antonio Kite from Auburn, and Ricky Fletcher from South Alabama to form some combination on the back end. This unit is a massive concern for me, as communication's paramount on the back end, so having a group that has yet to have played together trying to work as one is going to be near impossible task, especially early in the season. I'd expect growing pains at the outset of the year and possibly all season, similar to what LSU had a couple years ago when they tried to do this, if they can't get it figured out. Looking at the schedule and outlook for the season, we know a Kiffin offense is going to put up points most weeks. There's going to be a few head scratchers mixed in. That Kentucky game, that was a head scratcher, regardless of how good the personnel is. Of course, it's going to hurt losing all the talent that they did, but I do expect the run game to be better, which is going to help complement that drop-off in passing production that's likely. Outside of the linebackers on defense, there is a lot to be concerned about here, specifically in the secondary, and I think that that's going to force the defense to take a step back as a whole this season. Georgia State, that's a win. At Kentucky, that's a win. There's no shot they lose to them 2 years in a row. I think Kentucky struggles to win a game here in conference play. Arkansas, I'm going to lean win. Taylon Green's going to be feisty early in the year. I just think that lack of that high-end talent to keep up with Ole Miss. Tulane, this is a win. I think they just have too much firepower and too much turnover at Tulane for them to compete. If they didn't lose Mensah and Hughes, I think this is a completely different story, though. LSU, they always play the Tigers tough. I'm going to lean loss, but they play LSU tough year in and year out. Washington State, that's a win. At Georgia, loss. At Oklahoma, coin flip game. There's 2 somewhat unknowns at quarterback here. It's on the road. I would lean towards believing in Ole Miss. I think Venables can come up with a game plan here that makes it a coin flip, specifically in Norman. South Carolina, I'm going to lean loss. Sellers is just flat out an X factor. Who knows what they're going to have, but he can carry a team. Citadel, win. Florida, that's a coin flip, battle of the 2 young quarterbacks. I think if it was in Gainesville, it would be tough, but I would lean loss because I think Lagway could be good, but we'll see. Their run game is going to be nasty. At Mississippi State, you get a win in the Egg Bowl. They're still struggle bus. I think the offense is going to be good enough to carry them for most of the season, and if the secondary comes together, there is upside for this team. 7 wins should be the floor here. 9 is probably the upper end outcome of the team. It really feels like a real rebuilding year for Lane, though, after really going all in last season.